David Parker Ray's chilling past, they think he may have killed dozens and dozens of women.
Dozens of women were taken into David Parker Ray's toy box.
Ray was a serial rapist who kidnapped and tortured his victims.
A trailer turned torture chamber in Truth or Consequences.
Agents believe he was also a serial killer.
You will probably scream a lot, and that is exactly what I want you to do.
Once they got her in their trailer, she knew she was in trouble.
Investigators searching for answers.
He put his handcuffs on me, and he had me in his trailer, and he drove me to Elephant View.
FBI, state police, and Albuquerque police will once again search Elephant Butte Lake for the remains of Ray's victims. Investigators suspect Ray may have killed as many as 40 women, but so far, no bodies have ever been found.
Serenity, and this is my channel, and I'm back. I am actually really back, and I'm filming on a real camera. This is the Canon M50. Give me some leeway, this is actually the first thing I'm ever filming on it. I'm back with a new series. Hometown Horrors is a new series I'm starting on my channel. I grew up on true crime, and I've always been fascinated by why people do what they do. The whole nature versus nurture aspect. Hometown Horrors is going to be a series on my channel where true crime cases that have some sort of significance based in my hometown county and surrounding areas. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas, sister city to Juarez, Mexico. There is an insane phenomenon. Ciudad Juarez, Mexico is one of the most dangerous cities in the world, often ranked in the top 10 on the yearly analysis list. And until 2 years ago, El Paso, Texas had always been ranked one of the safest cities in America, often in the top 15. That was before an outsider with extreme hate for Hispanics massacred 23 people. El Paso, Texas has not made it back onto the safest cities in America list yet. No matter how safe the city may be, there are always crimes being committed in any city. As someone who grew up in the city and knows the ins and outs, who can tell you exactly where parts of crimes have taken place and what parts of the town are dangerous, I have this knowledge which I believe can help bring a certain perspective. As I said, El Paso was one of the safest cities for years. There are only so many criminal cases I would be able to cover before I ran out. Thus, I will be also covering cases from surrounding areas including Juarez, Mexico, Las Cruces, New Mexico, Horizon, Texas, Chaparral, New Mexico, and other surrounding areas I have been to and am very familiar with that. That way I'm still able to give that insider knowledge. A little announcement first on the special edition Halloween series of Hometown Horrors. Depending on the time as of filming this, it is Monday, October 25th, 2021. Scorpio season has begun. This special series will have either 4 to 5 videos consecutively posted back to back each day at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. My camera just came in, my softbox light I had broke, so we are working with this light, which is a ring light, and I actually don't really like ring lights, but here we are. I really wanted to have 5 episodes to kick off this new series on my channel and have been working on the graphics, research, intro, and outros for over a month now, but I don't want to rush the editing and half-ass it. So I decided, depending on the circumstances, I will either be doing 4 to 5 videos running till October 31st of 2021. The scripts of all 5 videos are written, however it all comes down to editing them in time. So if this first video comes out on October 27th, you won't know there are 5, but if this first video comes out October 28th, you know you will be getting 4 videos, and if it comes out on October 29th, you will be getting 3 videos. So don't worry though, those leftover scripts are written and will be set aside for a later date, so I will be covering those cases. Before we begin, I just want to give trigger warnings for rape, sexual assault, blood, torture, mutation, murder, domestic violence, sadomasochism, physical assault, and abuse. If any of these topics you believe you would be unable to handle, please stop watching. Put yourself first, and I'll see you at a later date with a different video. If I get any information wrong, please kindly let me know down below. I tried my best to get the following information as accurately as possible. However, I used multiple different sources, and if only one mentioned a certain detail but I was unable to verify using another, I left that detail out or went with the most commonly reported aspect of that detail. Sources will be linked down below. I tried to use only respected websites. If I'm looking to the side of the camera at all, it's because I have my laptop here, which here it is, right here, where I have the script loaded. If I didn't have a script, then I would forget so many details and go off topic constantly. I apologize if it is any inconvenience. Lastly, this video is an informational research study that I am sharing for academic entertainment reasons only. I mean no harm to anyone mentioned. And now, let's begin. David Parker Ray was born on November 6, 1939 in Belen, New Mexico, making him a Scorpio. His parents were Cecile and Nettie Ray. Certain sources claim Cecile, the father, left his parents' home, David's grandparents' house, as a teen and married a woman from Belen, New Mexico named Nettie in the mid-1930s. The couple were together for 16 years until Cecile, an alcoholic, abusive, violently moody man, divorced Nettie, took custody of their 2 young kids, and deposited them onto his parents. After the event, the kids never saw either of their parents. It is claimed that David's father gave his son magazines that showed acts of sadomasochism pornography, leading to a secret fantasization with sadomasochism. And when his father would visit the kids, he was physically abusive towards his son. David Parker Ray grew up with his sister Peggy by the ultra-strict hands of his parental grandparents. His grandpa was a fundamentalist who never showed affection. The siblings grew up on a tiny settlement on their grandparents' ranch in Mountain Tier, New Mexico, 45 minutes from Belen, New Mexico. His new guardians were first-generation farmers and ranchers. David began misbehaving in childhood, hiding his fascination for violence and pornography from his family and peers. David and his sister Peggy may have been only a year apart, but lived completely different lives. Peggy was a cute, popular girl in school, while David was an outcast, loner, and bullied for being shy around girls. Being an outcast led to Ray spending a lot of time by himself, where he would spend exploring the rural land and desert near his home, and eventually riding his dirt bike around. At age 13 or 14, he claimed to have tied a woman to a tree and tortured her to death. This is to be believed to be a deep fantasy of Ray's rather than fact. As a teenager, he began to use alcohol and drugs to an extreme extent. After he finished high school, he worked as an auto mechanic and later joined the army, where he was honorably discharged at the end of his enlistment. He soon began working as a park ranger in Truth and Consequences, New Mexico, where he would meet his future girlfriend and accomplice, Cindy Leah Hendy, in 1997. The two quickly bonded over their love for violent sexual fantasies. Ray was 57 to Hendy's 37 years, making him 20 years her senior. A source claimed that she soon moved in with Ray. Cindy was a criminal herself. She had fled to Truth and Consequences, New Mexico from Washington on grand theft and drug charges. She was also a mother to 3 kids, all from different fathers. Hendy was an incompetent mother who often let her children go hungry and pawned her kids off to her parents. Hendy was kicked out of her house by her mother at age 12 after her stepfather crawled into her bed and attempted to rape her at age 11. Cindy enjoyed aggressive, near-violent sex that included rape fantasies. An ex-partner once claimed that she had told him at some point they should pick up a prostitute to rape. Cindy Leah Hendy claims, and I quote, "When Dad moved in, he started to tell me all the women he had murdered. He said at least one a year for about 40 years. She wasn't sure she believed Ray's story at first. She said she was both nervous and intrigued after hearing it. Ray had bragged that he knew how to kill someone and bury them in a lake. The thing to do is to cut them down the belly and scoop out their guts. Fill the chest cavity with cement weights, then use the baling wire to wrap them up." End quote. In the back of David Parker Ray's house, there was a 25-foot-long, windowless cargo trailer he called the toy box, which was an estimated $100,000 homemade torture chamber equipped with what he called his friends: chains, whips, pulleys, straps, clamps, leg spreader bars, along with surgical blades and saws. With these tools to terrorize the young woman in Truth and Consequences for several years, with the assistance of multiple accomplices, including friends and family. Along with the numerous sex toys, torture, impalement, syringing, there were detailed diagrams which Ray made himself, showing different methods and techniques to inflict pain on young women, including a homemade electric generating OBGYN light chair to inflict torture. Ray would also record an audio tape of himself whenever they regained consciousness to torture them again. These tortures were depraved. David's victims were fully consciously aware of what was being done to them. Acts of extreme torture, rape, mutilation, and eventually death. David Parker was a known serial killer to the FBI, but was let go, which led to him getting away with his crimes for so long. March 22nd of 1999, 911 dispatchers were alerted through a series of phone calls of a young woman frantically trying to stop cars in the middle of a street for help in Elephant View, New Mexico. This young woman was 22-year-old Cynthia Vergil, a sex worker from Albuquerque, New Mexico, about 2 hours away from Elephant View, New Mexico. Vergil had gone to Ray's RV 2 days prior for a date. Once the trailer's door was shut and locked, Ray took out a fake police badge and claimed he was an undercover cop. Cynthia states, and I quote, "He told me I was under arrest and pulled a handcuff on my wrist. I knew something was wrong. She was then drugged, tasered, blindfolded, and chained to a bed, where she heard the click of a tape recorder that played Ray's instruction tape. The tape played the following message. Okay, bitch, we both know what you've been brought here for. I'm going to use you for a sex slave, and it's going to be painful as hell. That's the way I want it to be." Cynthia soon passed out from the pain inflicted on her, but soon regained consciousness and managed to escape after David accidentally left a keyring on a nightstand. Ray's girlfriend, his willing accomplice, Cindy, bashed Cynthia in the head with a lamp as she was attempting to unlock her chains and flee. Virgil stabbed Hendy in the neck with an ice pick, found on the floor, and managed to make her escape. Running down the street naked and bleeding, Virgil had no idea where she was, only that she was surrounded by strips of glass and double-wide homes. Cynthia Virgil relied on her adrenaline and gut to find a house that she felt safe enough to run and hide it. That ended up being Darlene Breach's unit, who was shocked to see a woman bloody burst into her living room and lock the front door behind her. Breach called 911. As the two women waited for deputies to arrive, the homeowner wrapped Virgil in a pink robe and was talking to the battered woman in a soothing voice. The two deputies arrived and were shocked to find Cynthia wearing a metal dog collar around her neck as she exclaimed, "I'm alive, I broke free." The officers, Lucas Alvarez and David Elston, sat Cynthia Virgil down and asked what happened to her. The two men would never be prepared for what the young woman was about to say. Elston and Alvarez worked for the Sierra County Sheriff's Department. They spent their days running routine traffic stops, settling domestic squabbles, and breaking up fights. They had never dealt with such a heinous crime. As tears streamed down her face and she couldn't stop trembling, Cynthia recalled her survival story in detail. How for days she was tortured, and how to find the men who held her captive. The officers drove Virgil to the nearest hospital in the larger town of Truth and Consequences, New Mexico, which is a pink robe covering her. Elston followed up on a strange 911 call made from the same neighborhood that came in before Virgil was seen fleeing for her life. The call was traced to a home on Base Road, a block from where Virgil was picked up. She had made the call before she fled for her life, staying on the line for a few seconds before hanging up. That very same day, March 22nd, 1999, Ray and Hendy were arrested. Years before Ray's crimes were revealed, many signs pointed to David Parker Ray not being in a sane mindset. However, he was never seen by a social worker or a school counselor. That went on in this cargo trailer, which shocked the investigators and the world. Shortly after their capture, on May 22nd, 1999, the couple claimed they were trying to detox Virgil from heroin, the addiction brought from Virgil's pimp in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Hendy initially scouted the young woman. The authorities quickly saw through this lie when they searched through Ray's property he shared with Hendy, revealing the torture chamber. Investigators quickly found piles of evidence that corroborated Virgil's claims, including torture instruments, Ray's instructions tape he would play for his victims, video footage of Ray torturing another woman, a crude drawing. Most notable of the evidence was a journal with dozen entries detailing the crimes, no names, only date, and the number of times he tortured each victim. Altogether, over 1,000 pieces of evidence were filed and taken. The news broke across all local news channels. Subsequently, 2 more victims came forward to collaborate with Cynthia Virgil Sori. The young women's names were Kelly Garrett and Angelica Montano. Angelica Montano, a casual acquaintance of David Parker Ray's, visited his home on February 17, 1999. She was kidnapped at gun and knife point. For the next 3 days, she was tortured, using the OBGYN electric table and other devices in the toy box. On the 4th day, after begging for mercy, Angelica was dumped on the side of the highway in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, where she then hitchhiked, battered and bruised back to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where she filed a claim with the local police department, but was brushed off. Angelica came forward when Ray and Hendy were arrested and agreed to give a testimony at the trial. Sadly, at age 28, she suffered from a sudden harsh bout of pneumonia, which led to heart failure shortly after. Angelica Montano would never be able to face her abuser and testify to the crimes that were committed against her. Montano's mother would testify in place of her deceased daughter. The other young woman who came forward claiming to be a victim of Ray's, her name was Kelly Garrett, the only other victim who is known to be a survivor and testify at the trial, along with Cynthia Virgil. It is believed, according to one source, Ray was married 4 times and and had a couple of kids across the marriages. One of these marriages led to the birth of his daughter, Jessie, who is the accomplice to her father when it came to capturing Kelly Garrett. Here's how the kidnapping is reported to have gone. On the night of July 24th, 1996, at the Blue Water Saloon, Garrett was there. Unwinding with alcohol drinks after a fight with her husband, Jessie walked in and immediately set her sights on Kelly to be her father's next victim. Jessie drugged Kelly's drink and dragged her out to the parking lot where David was waiting. Once inside the car, Jessie and David clamped a metal dog collar on Kelly's neck and drove her back to Ray's toy box. For the next 4 days, Ray inflicted pain onto Garrett. He raped and drugged her, along with strapping her to the electric OBGYN torture chair, where he gruesomely abused her. All while Jessie watched. On the 4th day, Ray drove Garrett to an isolated desert and slit her throat. Seeing copious amounts of blood gushing from her, he walked away, believing Kelly had died due to the injury. Kelly Garrett survived. She told her husband and the police. Both said she was mentally deranged. Police report was filed, however, got misplaced. No one truly ever took Garrett seriously until 1999, when Cynthia Vergil's story was broadcasted across the news. It is not widely reported how many victims of David Parker's Ray lived. Below I will leave a source which chronologically orders the crimes of David Parker Ray. I first heard this case when I was about 8 or 9. My uncle lived up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, so we would visit at least 3 times a year. On the drive up, we would always pass through the small town of Ciudad Juarez, New Mexico, where signs for the detour to Elephant View Lake State Park was. My mother would on occasion bring up how bodies were constantly being found in this lake, and something about the toy box murders. I never thought more of it because, of course, any large body of water, which was murky, probably has a ton of dead bodies in it. But as I researched cases in my vicinity, this one kept popping up. As I probed into it, this is thought to be the state park both David Parker Ray and Cynthia Leah Hendy worked at. They had limitless access to parts of the lake that would have been able to dump bodies with no hassles. Rumor states many of Ray's victims are dumped in this lake, along with ex-business partners of his. During the trial, the prosecution, 2 victims forward to testify, Kelly Garrett and Cynthia Vergil, along with the mother of Angelica Montana, Loretta Romero. They described the horrid forms of torture they endured while captive by David Parker Ray. Kelly Garrett was adamant about Ray not receiving the death penalty. She wanted him to suffer for the rest of his life and not take the easy way out, which I 100% agree with. This is the easiest way out in this criminal case. I don't say this often, but Ray deserved to rot in prison. Kelly finished her final statements as follows. I hope this sick pervert will find no friends in prison. I hope he will be controlled and used in the same manner that myself and Ray's other victims had. I am not a victim, but a survivor. Cynthia Vergil's grandmother, Bertha Vergil, made a final statement before the case went to deliberation. Went as follows. My granddaughter has nightmares every night. Ray has ruined not only her life, but her whole family's. I pray Ray suffers every day for the rest of his life. Satan has a place for you. I hope you burn in hell forever. He is a poor excuse for a human being. How would you like it if the same was done to his daughter, as he has done to Cynthia? Miss Vergil said. Cynthia Vergil's final statement went as follows. I bear scars outside and inside that will never heal. No punishment is equal to the agony I have suffered. I am afraid of being tied down, helpless. I am afraid of the dark. I am afraid of going out alone. While crying, Cynthia Vergil completed her statement with the following. I hope David Parker Ray will spend the rest of his life inside 4 walls and suffer the way he made me suffer. Loretta Romero, Angelica Montana's mother, final statement went as follows. My daughter had a good heart, but she had lost all respect. Lost her smile, lost everything because of David Parker Ray. I am here for Angie and her 2 little boys whose lives Ray has ruined. I feel sorry for David Ray. I forgive him, and I know my daughter would have forgiven him. As the verdict was pronounced, with the judge, Kelly Garrett and Cynthia Vergil were seen holding hands while crying in anticipation. Ray, who seemed to be in good spirits during his sentencing hearing and unmoved while his victims cried, said he is having a hard time expressing himself. Despite his handicap as a public speaker, Ray told the court that no one but his attorney had heard his side of the story. Ray said many lies and distortions. Ray said he had entered into a plea agreement, admitting to his crimes against Garrett and Vergil to get his daughter released. As we know, Jessie Ray was the accomplice to Kelly Garrett's torture. The crimes Ray was being sentenced for were against these two women. The crimes, Ray claims that after his arrest, he lost everything. His home, health, and material assets. 2.5 years Ray spent in prison waiting for his trial after his arrest. He claims he was able to reflect and read his Bible to, and I quote, "Get right with God. My life is in his hands. I can't change the past, but can only be sorry." Kelly Garrett did not receive her wish of David Parker Ray rotting in prison for the rest of his natural life. Ray died 8 months after his sentencing, only serving 3 years of his 224-year sentence in May of 2002. The FBI investigators believe David Parker Ray is responsible to up to 40 to 60 murders. Handy once said, Ray told her, and I quote, "He had perfecting hiding his victims in the nearby lake by splitting open their abdomens and filling them with cement before submerging their body." The probability of Ray ever being caught if Cynthia Vergil had never escaped would have been low, especially due to the fact that Vergil made that 911 phone call right before she ran for her life, providing the exact location of where her kidnapper and torturer had kept her. I don't care what you do to earn for your living. As long as you are not harming anyone physically, emotionally, or mentally, everyone deserves to be taken seriously when reporting a crime, especially committed against them. David's victims were usually sex workers who were addicted to drugs, so the authorities often did not take them seriously when they reported the crimes. I know what you're all wondering. What happened to Jesse Ray and Cindy Hendy, Ray's daughter and girlfriend, both his accomplices? As we know, Ray took a plea deal in order to lessen his daughter's sentence, along with his daughter testifying against her dad and what she had witnessed. Jesse Ray was sentenced to only 30 months in prison with 5 years of probation. She never admitted to any crime and barely cooperated with the police. She faced 12 counts of kidnapping and walked free in September of 2001. She is now in her 50s. Cindy Hendy, Ray's trusty accomplice, was given a 36-year sentence in 2000. She testified against her boyfriend, David Parker Ray, to lessen her sentence, along with confessing 14 more murders Ray committed and leading to police to burial sites. But nothing was ever found. On July 15, 2019, Hendy was released free with no parole or anything. 100% a free woman. She was let out on a plea deal 3 months before a new law required violent criminals to serve 85% of their sentence. This law was passed while Hendy was in prison. She would have been released in the year 2030. This is a case that truly terrifies me. David Parker Ray terrifies me. 1, he was an old white man. Red flag number 1. 2, he was truly demented and tortured more people than we will ever know. 3, he was able to have so many willing accomplices, so we may never truly know how long he was committing these crimes. I mean, his own girlfriend, daughter, and family were in on it. You cannot say that does not petrify you. Along with Cindy Hendy and Jesse Ray being free and able to walk around us, I rarely am horror-stricken by a true crime case, but this one truly does paralyze. There's probably dozens of bodies in Elephant View Lake that we will never know are in there or have completely decomposed, besides the corpses being left. Unless the 40-mile length body of water is drained, we will never know of their existence or how many people Ray tortured in his toy box. Ever. Do you think David Parker Ray's toxic father, upbringing, and awkward persona in high school led to his life of horrific crime? We still have 2 to 4 more very interesting cases to get through. The doggo picture of the day is this picture of all my dogs. Yep, all 11 in my bedroom at once. You can only count 10 in this picture. Daisy was sitting on my lap when this was taken. Remember, all my socials are linked down below, including my blog, craft page, dog Instagram, personal Instagram, Pinterest, and Snapchat. Go check it all out. Remember to take care of yourself. Love you, mean it, kisses. Don't do anything stupid, and I'll see you guys next time.